Have you ever found yourself fighting against fate, trying to make everything happen exactly your way? Let me tell you something. Existence doesn't work that way. Stop forcing, take a deep breath, and embrace the wisdom of the ancient Stoics. These philosophers of the past taught us that true power lies in accepting what we cannot change. Today, I want to share how, through Stoic philosophy, you can stop agonizing over trying to fit pieces that simply don't fit, allowing silence to guide you, savoring the little joys, and letting life take its own course. After all, insisting only brings frustration, while letting go leads to serenity. Isn't that what we all strive for? There's something incredibly liberating about the idea that we don't always need to force situations. But make no mistake, I'm not here to offer a magical solution that will solve all your difficulties, nor to suggest that you give in to total inertia. The key is much more delicate and often simpler than we'd like to admit. Have you ever considered that, instead of fighting against the natural flow of life, it's wiser to let things happen in their own time? By practicing Stoic philosophy, you discover that true peace resides not in forcing, but in accepting. So how about subscribing to the channel and leaving your like? And to show that you're ready to embrace this new perspective, comment, "I find peace in acceptance." Leave that comment, and I'll love to leave a little heart, confirming that you're on the right path to a more serene life. Now that you've commented, let's continue. Let's start with silence. Yes, that silence that often makes us uncomfortable, as if we're competing to see who can stay quiet the longest without going crazy. But here's the secret. Silence is not just the absence of noise. It's a powerful tool when used with purpose. Think about when you're trying to solve a complicated puzzle. If you're suffocated by the pressure to find the right piece, silence offers the necessary space to clear your mind and see things in a new way. In the relentless hustle of modern life, we often forget that silence can be a welcome pause. There's no need to rush a conversation or make hasty decisions. Sometimes all we need is a moment of tranquility for solutions to naturally emerge. Imagine silence as the cooling time of a machine. It prevents overheating and ensures optimal performance. Now about finding joy in simple things. Stoic philosophy teaches us that true satisfaction doesn't come from accumulating goods or great feats, but from valuing what we have now. It's easy to fall into the illusion that happiness lies in the next big achievement or an impulsive purchase. But have you ever stopped to think about the peace you can find in a hot cup of tea at dawn, or in the embrace of a dear friend? Imagine you're in an endless race for more. It's like being on a treadmill that never stops. The more you run, the further you get from the destination. However, if instead of chasing the horizon, you simply stop to admire the landscape around you, you'll realize there's beauty and joy in the here and now. There's no need to force an idea of fullness or follow a series of predetermined steps. Simplicity is an invitation to find happiness in everyday life, without complications. So next time you feel tempted to force something, be it in relationships, work, or your personal dreams, remember that silence and simplicity are your allies. By allowing yourself moments of calm and valuing the little things in life, you're opening yourself up to a more genuine form of happiness. Stoic philosophy invites us to find satisfaction in the present and to let go of the reins of constant pressures. Thus, when you're caught up in the hustle of forcing a solution or the relentless pursuit of more, take a step back. Embrace silence, enjoy simplicity, and let life unfold without the weight of your excessive expectations. Remember, true peace is not in the frantic pursuit of more, but in the tranquil appreciation of what you already have. And more than ever, it's about finding harmony in small things, like the birdsong at dawn or a child's smile while playing. Have you ever reflected on the unpredictable nature of existence? It's like everything around is in a disordered dance, changing without warning and challenging our expectations. And there we are, in the midst of it all, trying to control every turn, wanting everything to follow our plan. But isn't it a bit absurd to wish for a river to change its course just because we want it to? Life, like a river, has its own course and, surprisingly, doesn't mold to our desires. The only certainty is constant change. It may seem like a trick played by fate, but it's an undeniable truth. Imagine life as a play where the script changes in the middle of a scene, and the actors improvise their lines. Trying to force everything to follow a fixed script only generates frustration. The ancient Stoics teach us to accept changes with tranquility, not to cling to what we cannot control. It's like trying to hold sand between your fingers. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips away. The idea here is not to make you feel bad for not having everything under control, but rather to present a more sensible alternative. Learn to live with impermanence instead of fighting against the natural flow of life. Why not learn to dance with these changes? It requires a bit of patience and humility, but the result is liberating. First, focus on enjoying the present moments. Yes, those we often ignore while we're busy planning for the future or lamenting the past. Think of them as small rays of light on a cloudy day. Just like a rough diamond, each moment has its value, if only we take the time to notice it. Don't let anxiety or disappointment rob you of the ability to savor what you have now. If the present is a gift, why treat it as an obligation? Next, stop forcing things. Imagine trying to fit a puzzle piece in a place where it clearly doesn't belong. The more you force it, the more damage you cause. Life often presents us with challenges and opportunities that seem out of place, but that doesn't mean we should force ourselves to fit into them. Accept that some pieces simply won't fit and move on. Sometimes, true wisdom lies in knowing when to let go. Patience is another vital tool. It's not about waiting without action, but about learning to move with the natural rhythm of things. If you find yourself stuck in a situation that you can't change immediately, use that time to grow, reflect, and prepare for when the opportunity to act arises. Patience is not passivity. It's an active way of facing uncertainty with serenity and determination. Finally, as you meditate on all this, remember that life is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived. Every change, every challenge is simply a part of the journey. Instead of forcing a specific direction, learn to appreciate the ever-changing landscape and trust that each turn in the path has something to offer. Stopping forcing things doesn't mean giving up, but adjusting your expectations and embracing impermanence with an open and flexible attitude. Life doesn't follow a fixed script. Instead of fighting against the current, learn to navigate it. You might be surprised at how much you can enjoy the journey when you stop trying to control everything. Remember, dear friend, you can't force the river, but you can learn to glide smoothly on its waters. And who knows, along the way, you might discover small wonders, like the sound of a falling leaf or the sparkle of stars on a clear night. How many times have you witnessed someone trying to fit a square into a round hole? It's a scene that sometimes provokes a certain despondency, like when someone insists on maintaining a relationship that's more damaged than a phone screen after a fall from the 10th floor. The reality is that many of us are committed to altering situations that we simply cannot change. And instead of accepting, we end up fighting against the waves while the ocean follows its course, indifferent to our efforts. Acceptance is not synonymous with resignation. On the contrary, it's a robust form of wisdom. It's the ability to face circumstances with the serenity of a Buddhist monk and the clarity of a freshly polished crystal. It's not about crossing your arms and waiting for everything to pass or conforming to fate in the hope that something will magically change. It's more about recognizing that you're on a battlefield and, instead of trying to modify the terrain, deciding how best to use the tools you have. Imagine yourself in a game of chess. The pieces are positioned on the board, and no matter how much you wish, you can't change their positions. You can't just declare, "Oh, wonderful, I'm going to move the pawn to a winning position." That would be somewhat absurd. What you can do instead is observe the board with an open mind, evaluate your options, and make decisions based on what's really before you. Acceptance is just that, observing the pieces and playing with what's there, instead of trying to change the rules of the game. This idea is deeply aligned with Stoic philosophy. The Stoics teach us that true strength lies in the ability to accept what we cannot change and focus on our own responses and actions. Epictetus, an ancient Roman thinker, said something that still resonates today. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that really matters. It's like having an internal compass guiding you through the storm, no matter how hard the wind blows. Now you might be thinking, Sure, all this sounds good in theory, but in practice, how do I accept and not force? Well, here's a suggestion. Imagine life as a dance. Sometimes the music changes and takes you out of rhythm. Instead of continuing to dance as if everything were to remain the same, accept the change and adjust your steps. If you strive to maintain the same rhythm while the music changes, you'll just step on your own feet and end up exhausted. On the other hand, if the melody has changed, you can adjust your movements and enjoy the dance. So, how do you apply this in your daily life? First, identify the things that are truly out of your control. You can't command traffic, but you can decide if you'll get irritated every time you're stuck or if you'd rather listen to a good podcast. You can't control other people's attitudes, but you can choose how to react to them. Instead of forcing situations to fit your ideal mold, accept reality and adjust your expectations. Acceptance is not surrender to fate, but a demonstration of strength. It's an exercise in mental clarity and inner peace, a way to avoid the wear and tear of fighting against currents you can't change. It's a reminder that instead of forcing, it's wiser to accept, adapt, and move on. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, when you can't change the direction of the wind, adjust your sails to reach your destination. And along this journey, allow yourself to discover the pleasure in the small surprises life offers you, like the aroma of fresh coffee or the gentle touch of a breeze on a hot day. Have you ever caught yourself pushing a door that clearly was meant to be pulled? That moment when you exert all your strength, but the door doesn't budge because it's meant to open in the opposite direction. That's how we seem when we try to force something that's simply not meant to happen. Learning to let go isn't surrendering like a hopeless sailor in a drifting boat. It's realizing that some things are beyond our control and accepting that reality with a combination of serenity and pragmatism. And believe me, it's easier said than done. Let's start with a bit of Stoic philosophy. The ancient Stoics teach us that true inner peace comes from accepting what we cannot change. Imagine your life as a series of paintings in a gallery. There are certain paintings you can modify, like the color of the frame or the lighting, but there are other aspects, like the landscape or the portraits themselves, that are there to stay. Fighting against what's already painted on the canvas is a waste of energy. Think of trying to control the weather. You really try. You buy a coat for every season, use creams that promise to protect your skin from all kinds of humidity, and subscribe to all weather services. But the weather, like many other aspects of life, cannot be controlled. Forcing things in these cases is like trying to make a cactus bloom in the Arctic. It's simply impractical and will cause you more harm than benefit. So, how do you apply this to your routine? Start by identifying what you really can control and what you can't. If you're in a relationship that is clearly ended, trying to maintain it is like putting gas in a car with no engine. Accepting that some things must end frees you from unnecessary burdens and opens you up to new opportunities without being tied to what no longer works. Here's a simple but effective strategy. Write a list of concerns. Next to each item, note if you can do something to change the situation or if it's something completely beyond your reach. It's not magic, but it will help clarify what deserves your energy and what is better left to pass. In the end, learning to let go is an act of liberation. It's not surrender or a sign of weakness, but practical wisdom for living a lighter life, free from unnecessary weights. It's like organizing your closet and getting rid of clothes you don't use. At first, it may seem painful, but in the end, you feel renewed and ready for something new. Life doesn't always fit into our plans and expectations, and that's okay. Understanding and accepting that some things are simply beyond our control allows us to live more fully without constantly being frustrated by what we cannot change. So, next time you feel like you're pushing a door that clearly should be pulled, remember, sometimes the best way to move forward is simply to let go. Letting go is not giving up. It's having the courage to accept what cannot be altered. And along this journey, allow yourself to discover the beauty of living with fewer attachments, like the pleasure of a sincere conversation or the tranquility of a sunny day. Letting go is, in essence, making space for new things, with the lightness of someone who understands that life is a collection of moments to be lived, not an equation to be solved. Have you ever found yourself in that situation where you try to open a door by pushing with all your might, only to realize it should be pulled? That's how we feel when we try to force life. We get frustrated, and if we're lucky, we end up with just a small wound to our ego. But what if I told you there's a simpler way to open life's doors without getting hurt? Here's the secret. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is like having an instruction manual for the mind. Imagine yourself in a cafe, calmly enjoying a coffee. Instead of worrying about the bill that arrives at the end of the day or that endless email, you simply focus on the aroma of the coffee, the texture of the cup, the taste lingering in your mouth. It's a moment where you allow yourself to be completely aware of your own emotions and thoughts, without judging them apocalyptically. It may seem like I'm selling a magic formula, but it's a rather simple and effective strategy. Practicing mindfulness is like training the mind to be an observer, more than a judge. Instead of fighting against your emotions or thoughts, you observe them, acknowledge them, and let them pass without getting carried away by them. It's like being a spectator in the theater of your own life, where dramas unfold and then dissipate, without needing to get involved in every scene. Here come the Stoics, those philosophers from ancient Greece who seem to have all the answers. They already understood that it's not about forcing things, but about accepting what is and working with it. Instead of trying to change the world around you, it's about changing your reaction to it. And the crucial part is that mindfulness is the tool that helps you do this without going crazy in the process. To put it in perspective, think about how your life would be if you weren't so rigid in your approach. If, instead of forcing things, you adapted and accepted circumstances, you might feel less stress and more peace. Imagine you're on a road with heavy traffic. You could get frustrated, shout and honk as if your life depended on it. Or you could accept the situation. Listen to an interesting podcast and relax while the traffic moves along. The difference is fundamental. By accepting and adapting, you reduce stress and anxiety and allow yourself to live fully in the present. So, how do you apply mindfulness in your daily life? First, start with small exercises. Dedicate a few minutes a day to observe your thoughts and emotions without judging them. Ask yourself, how do I feel at this moment? And simply accept it. You don't need to do anything about it, just observe. Second, practice patience. Don't force things to fit your will. Instead, adapt your approach according to what's around you. Life is too short to be fighting every obstacle you encounter. Instead of being a bull charging against everything, be a navigator adjusting your sails. Finally, remember that mindfulness is not a magic solution that will make you immune to problems. It's actually a compass that helps you stay on course without losing your calm. So next time you feel the need to force something, simply breathe, observe, and adapt. You might find that the journey is much more enjoyable when you're not so busy breaking down doors. And remember this, to live in peace with the world, you must first make peace with yourself. And perhaps, during this process, you'll find small moments of beauty, like a bird's song or the simplicity of a sunset that previously went unnoticed. Have you heard anyone say that silence is golden? Well, the ancient sages were right. Silence is not just a pause in the conversation. It's a powerful tool for self-knowledge and reflection. In a world filled with noise and rush, silence becomes a refuge where we can find answers to the deepest questions. I'm not referring to that awkward silence that arises when your aunt asks about your love life. I'm talking about genuine silence, the kind that allows you to connect with yourself and with life. Imagine yourself in the midst of a storm, with waves crashing furiously, the wind howling and everything seeming chaotic. Silence is like an internal compass that helps you stay calm, adjust your course, and not get carried away by the chaos. Now transfer this image to everyday life. Instead of being swept away by the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, why not use silence as a tool to find balance? Silence doesn't always mean being quiet. It can be as simple as taking a moment to breathe deeply and observe your thoughts without judging them. It's as if your mind were a messy room, and silence were the time you dedicate to organizing all the chaos. When you allow yourself to reflect in silence, you realize that many of the things you deemed important aren't that essential after all. Stoic philosophy teaches us that serenity and wisdom come from accepting what we cannot change and focusing on what's truly under our control. In other words, silence allows you to distinguish between what's essential and what's just noise. We often find ourselves in the trap of wanting to force things, a conversation, a decision, even our own feelings. But silence has a curious way of showing us that, often, the best solution is simply to do nothing. It's like trying to adjust a clock that's already on time. What you really need is to stop and listen to the ticking, instead of continuing to spin the wheel unnecessarily. Silence offers us a moment to evaluate our priorities and how we deal with our emotions. If you're always on the move, it's easy to lose sight of what you truly desire or need. Silence forces you to stop and reconsider. So, how do you use silence effectively? First, dedicate a few minutes of the day just for yourself. You don't need to meditate for hours. A few minutes of quiet reflection are enough. Choose a calm place, turn off your phone, and simply sit in silence. Observe your thoughts without getting carried away by them. This small ritual can be as simple as a walk without listening to music or a pause during the day to take a deep breath. The key is not to try to force an immediate solution, but to allow answers to naturally emerge. It's also important to remember that silence doesn't mean loneliness. Sometimes, sharing a moment of silence with someone special can deepen the connection between you. Instead of forcing a conversation, enjoy these shared silent spaces where words aren't necessary to understand each other. In sum, silence is a powerful tool for finding clarity amidst life's noise. It's not about forcing anything, but about giving yourself the space to listen and reflect. If you learn to value silence, you'll discover that many answers are within you, waiting to be heard. So next time you feel overwhelmed, remember, you don't always need to speak or act. Sometimes, the best is simply to be silent and let things happen naturally. As Confucius said, silence is not always empty. Often, it is full. Have you noticed that, in the grand game of life, we often become so fixated on winning that we forget to enjoy every move? I'm referring to that daily journey we call day-to-day life, not just the final goal, that glorious "I made it," that brings the much-desired prize. Stoic philosophy, with its serenity and wisdom, reminds us that forcing things only leads to a constant state of frustration. So, let's simplify and discover how to enjoy the journey without getting caught up in the final destination. Think of your goals as a bike ride. You imagine the wind on your face and the changing scenery as you move forward. But instead of enjoying the ride, you're so obsessed with reaching the end that you forget to pedal, to notice the flowers by the roadside, and even to feel the adrenaline of steep climbs. All you see is the end of the route, that seemingly unattainable goal that becomes the sole focus of your desire. Does this sound familiar? The problem with this mindset is that by forcing the pace, we end up exhausted before getting there. It's like trying to speed up a turtle. The results become unattainable, and the journey becomes a burden, not an adventure. Stoic philosophy suggests that instead of fighting against the current, we should learn to swim with it. In other words, enjoy the journey itself, not just the final result. Here's the trick. It's not about surrendering to apathy, but about finding the balance between effort and pleasure. Imagine your life as a dance. If you focus only on the final steps, you'll lose the rhythm and fluidity that make the dance truly beautiful. Forcing the pace will only lead to stumbling, while moving gracefully and without rush will allow you to enjoy every turn and every step. To apply this, start by setting small, realistic goals. Instead of obsessing over the big objective, celebrate the small achievements. It's like instead of trying to build a cathedral all at once, you allow yourself to admire each brick you lay. Also, practice self-compassion. If you notice you're pushing too hard, remember it's okay to take a step back. Life isn't a sprint but a marathon, and in a marathon, learning to maintain a steady pace and enjoy the scenery is crucial to not burning out before the end. It's not about rejecting ambition, but about moderating it with wisdom. Just as a good chef doesn't limit themselves to seeing the finished dish, but enjoys each ingredient and each step of the preparation, you too should learn to savor each moment of the journey toward your goals. Thus, The final result won't just be a finish line, but the culmination of a life-filled and learning-rich experience. As an old saying goes, life is a journey, not a race. Learn to enjoy every step because, in the end, that's all we really have. So take a deep breath, release the brakes, and remember that every pedal stroke counts. Enjoy the ride and allow yourself to discover the beauty of small moments, like the spontaneous laughter of a child or the warmth of the sun on a cold morning. Have you ever reflected on why, in an era full of advancements and promises of a better life, we often feel emptier than ever? Perhaps the answer doesn't lie in the latest technology or that long-awaited pay raise. Perhaps, just maybe, the key lies in something much simpler: finding joy in small things. Stoic philosophy, with its wise simplicity, reminds us that true happiness doesn't reside in great achievements, but in the little things we often overlook. Imagine for a moment that you're in a cafe, sitting by a window. Outside it's pouring rain, but you're comfortable, enjoying a freshly brewed cup of coffee. You could be rushing to an important meeting or trying to resolve a family conflict, but at this moment, you're just savoring a warm drink and watching the raindrops trickling down the glass. Sometimes, the deepest joy is in these mundane moments. But how is that possible? Isn't it in great achievements that are truly worth investing in? This is where Stoic philosophy comes in. The Stoics believed in focusing on the present and appreciating what we already have. It's a perspective that invites us to abandon the constant need for more and better, and to find fullness in what's already within our reach. It's as if life offers us a menu full of simple and delicious dishes, but instead of savoring each bite, we're obsessed with finding the most complex and expensive dish on the menu. So, what do you do to genuinely appreciate simple things? First, you need to stop forcing life. Stoic philosophy teaches us that by trying to control every aspect of our existence, we end up trapped in a never-ending race, chasing happiness that always seems one step ahead. Instead, we should accept what we have and find joy in it. Imagine you're trying to make a 5-layer chocolate cake, but the oven breaks, and you can only make a simple cookie. Rather than getting frustrated by the lack of cake, enjoy the sweet taste of the cookie. Sometimes, what seems like a failure is just a less complicated version of what we really need. It's also helpful to remember that gratitude plays a crucial role in this process. Dedicate a few minutes every day to reflect on what you have and what you've already achieved, no matter how small it is. Appreciating the sun warming your skin, a friend's smile, or the silence of a quiet moment can be enough to change your perspective. This way, life becomes a series of small joys instead of an endless pursuit of great successes. True joy isn't in the uncertain future, nor in the great achievements we imagine. True joy resides in the present, in those simple and often forgotten moments. Stoic philosophy reminds us that instead of forcing things, we should learn to accept and appreciate what we have. So, next time you find yourself stuck in the routine of seeking more and better, remember that true happiness may be waiting for you in a cup of coffee, in a sincere conversation, or simply in the present moment. As Oscar Wilde said, true wealth is in the art of enjoying what is simple. As we allow ourselves to savor these small pleasures, we find a wealth of experiences that often go unnoticed, like the gentle breeze of a morning or the distant sound of children's laughter. Gratitude, that charming word we often use as a mere social formality. We say thank you when someone passes us the bread or compliments us. But do we really understand what it means to be truly grateful? If not, it's time to realize that being grateful isn't limited to polite words, but is a way of living that many of us let slip while chasing the latest gadget or the next big success. Imagine life as a party, and you're the guest who, instead of enjoying the music and food, is fixated on the fact that the DJ isn't playing your favorite song. That's how many of us act most of the time, focused on what's missing rather than what we already have. This is where the art of gratitude comes in, a philosophy that teaches us to see value in the small things we often ignore. Yes, I'm talking about those everyday moments that go unnoticed because we're too busy waiting for the next big event. The problem with the more is better mentality is that we're rarely satisfied with what we have. We spend the day thinking about everything we could have instead of valuing what we already have. I'll share a secret. This attitude is like trying to fill a bathtub without a plug. The water keeps escaping and you're never truly satisfied. Stoic philosophy, on the other hand, offers us a wiser way of seeing the world. It's not about forcing anything, but about accepting and valuing what is. But how do you apply this approach in our daily life? Here's a metaphor that might help. Imagine you're at a restaurant and receive a dish that's not exactly what you ordered. You could complain, demand they bring you what you wanted, or you could look at the dish in front of you, accept that it may not be perfect, but still enjoy the meal. Gratitude is just that, an attitude of acceptance and appreciation for what you have instead of focusing on what you lack. This doesn't mean you should resign yourself to a mediocre life. Instead of forcing changes, accept the small victories and moments of joy that come with each day. For example, instead of getting frustrated for not having the newest car, why not appreciate what you have? And instead of focusing on your job's flaws, why not value the positive aspects and opportunities it offers? The idea here is simple. Don't force anything. If you find yourself constantly dissatisfied, it's possible you're setting your expectations too high. Learn to be flexible, to adapt, and to find value in small things. The Stoics talk about this as the practice of acceptance and virtue, not as resigned submission, but as practical wisdom that allows you to find peace amid chaos. So, next time you feel like your life is out of control or something is missing, remember that gratitude isn't just saying thank you, but living in a state of constant appreciation. Recognize the small daily blessings and don't forget to enjoy what's in front of you, even if it's not from your preferred menu. By adopting this perspective, you'll discover that what you really need is often right in front of you. True wealth lies in knowing how to appreciate what we already have. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, gratitude is the art of seeing gold in the common sand. And along this journey, allow yourself to discover the beauty of details, like the gentle sound of a leaf in the wind or the warmth of an unexpected hug. Have you ever had that uncomfortable moment when you realized you're alone? And not in the sense of being at home with a book and a blanket, but in the deep and existential sense of, oh my God, I'm a solitary human being in a vast universe? If so, I have news that might surprise you. You're not alone in this. In fact, solitude can be one of your best allies if you give it a chance. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about a sepulchral silence with unsettling echoes, but rather the opportunity to connect with yourself in a way that the distractions of everyday life never allow. Society often paints solitude as a condemnation, bombarding us with images of lonely people in a corner cafe, looking out the window as if waiting for a train that will never arrive. But what if I told you that this image is completely wrong? In fact, we can think of solitude as a VIP club to which everyone has access, but few dare to visit. Stoic philosophy, with its focus on self-discipline and self-control, suggests that we should appreciate these moments of solitude because they offer us an invaluable pause for reflection. Imagine solitude as a kind of spiritual retreat, without the need to book a flight to some remote monastery. It's the space where you can stop forcing yourself to meet external expectations and begin to discover what you truly want and need in life. Now comes the interesting part. How can you turn solitude into a close friend instead of an annoyance? First, stop forcing yourself to fill every minute of your life with activities. If you're always busy, you'll never have time to examine yourself. Think of solitude as a testing room where you confront yourself without distractions. It's like trying to prepare a recipe with the ingredients you already have in the pantry. Instead of going out to buy the most exotic ones, you discover what's truly essential and valuable. A useful technique for dealing with solitude is meditation. I'm not talking about sitting cross-legged with your eyes closed in an impossible yoga position, but a simple practice of sitting in silence and letting your thoughts flow. This may seem uncomfortable at first, like a first date with a book you don't fully understand. But over time, you'll realize you're learning something about yourself. Another strategy is keeping a journal. You might not end up writing a novel, but by putting your thoughts on paper, you face them in a clearer and more objective way. Sometimes the problems that seem gigantic when kept in the mind become much more manageable when seen in ink and paper. So, next time you find yourself alone, instead of rushing to seek company or distract yourself with whatever comes to mind. Give yourself a moment to embrace that solitude. It's not an enemy you need to avoid, but a friend there to give you the opportunity to get to know the person you truly are. Remember, you don't need to force anything in your life. Just allow yourself the space to discover what you truly want and need. Because at the end of the day, solitude is like that friend who doesn't say much, but is always there to listen when you need it. So instead of fighting against it, welcome it. And if you ever feel lost, remember this quote: "True companionship begins the moment you learn to appreciate your own solitude." Allow yourself to find beauty in stillness, like the distant sound of a running river or the gentle swaying of trees in the wind. These moments offer a clarity we often seek in tumultuous places. And so we come to the end of this video, where we explored the wisdom of Stoic philosophy and the benefits of letting go of the reins to allow life to find its own course. If you've made it this far, congratulations. It shows your persistence, dedication, and audacity in seeking a more authentic path to success, freedom, or financial independence. To continue this journey with us, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and comment until the end, so that I can leave a little heart as proof of my recognition of your determination. On the screen, you'll find 2 recommendations specially selected for you.